we haven't had the 25 budget yet. That's next year, early next year. So whether or not there'll be more CDC vouchers, I think everyone should just wait and see what is in the budget announcement. We must never assume the good things in life just fall on our laps and that things magically work. Everything just works in place. So always looking at each and every issue, feedback that we receive, but also looking at policies and asking ourselves, can we do better? What we are indeed focusing on is to look at how we can create a more family-friendly environment in Singapore. So it's less of the perhaps older previous approach where it's incentives for babies, but rather than direct incentives towards procreation per se, it's to take the resources and see how we can use these resources to create a more family-friendly environment in general in Singapore. And that means looking at areas of concern for many young parents and families like preschool and education. It means looking at leave arrangements because many young parents do want to spend time with their children, especially when they are infants. And then it also means looking at areas like cost of living because, as I've mentioned just now, we know that many parents with children, especially when they have more than 3 or more kids, the cost starts to add up. It's not just your groceries and your daily necessities, but even fetching kids from place to place. If you have a big family, you need to make arrangements, and then all of these costs can pile up very quickly. So if we focus our minds on these areas and apply resources in these areas of need, I hope we can create over time a culture, a sort of appreciation that in Singapore we have an environment which is conducive for families. And then at the end of the day, we must let Singaporeans decide, but hopefully with that wider environment, more people will be encouraged and motivated to settle down and have kids. Well, the CDC vouchers for 2025, you said it's less than 2024, but we haven't had the 25 budget yet. That's next year, early next year. So whether or not there'll be more CDC vouchers, I think everyone should just wait and see what is in the budget announcement. CDC vouchers is one scheme where everyone gets something. Broad-based help, but we also have other types of help besides CDC vouchers. This year, we are giving out cost of living payouts, cash payouts, for example, targeted at lower to lower middle income groups. We've got utility save rebates, for example, SNCC rebates. So these are more focused, targeted helps, and we'll continue to review to see if whether it's broad-based or targeted measures, which ones, or how best to provide adequate support for the people who need help. And then, of course, as I mentioned just now, there is one new group which we think can benefit from more help, larger families, because we think their circumstances, given with more young children, the expenses do add up, and we are prepared to, and we are thinking about how we can provide more help to them. So we are indeed focused on looking at all of these different segments and thinking of different ways in which we can help address cost of living. So we will have to look at the data and what the indicators are with regards to income and inflation this year and next year, and then think about how we can put together the appropriate help, whether broad-based or targeted for the different segments, and we will do so in the budget in 2025. MOF have put out a medium-term budget forecast where we set out some of our expectations for how budgets will rise and expenditures will rise in the coming years. We had already started thinking about rising expenditure requirements due to aging populations, due to our rising social expenditures, and we knew that we needed to put in place revenue tax changes and adjustments in order to ensure that we have sufficient revenues for the medium term. So we will make sure that all of these new social initiatives that incur additional resources will be met by sufficient revenues in a way that's fiscally sustainable. I don't think of 100-day, 200-day, any of these milestones. I mean, I think the first priority for me after taking over was to think about what new directions, having had a leadership transition and a new government in place, what will we do to take Singapore forward in our next bound? And for Singaporeans, what does that mean? What does a new leader, a new government mean? And how do we anticipate that Singapore will move forward in this next phase of nation building? That was the key priority for me immediately after the leadership transition. And to do that, I took reference, of course, from the exercise which we had just completed, the Forward Singapore exercise, which indeed set out very clearly our shared ambitions for our next bound. And so, as I mentioned just now, one of my key priorities at the beginning is to flesh out what Forward Singapore means. Beyond the slogan, beyond the catchphrase, what does it mean in concrete terms? And I've tried to do over the last few months, since taking over, in different engagements, in different dialogue sessions, but the National Day rally itself was an opportunity for me, for the first time at such a national platform, to bring it all together and to crystallize it, hopefully in clearer and more concrete terms. And I hope I have been able to do that. But this is not the end of it. As I said, there will be more to come, and we are continuing to work on different issues. Well, I think the biggest assumption of all is that we must never assume the good things in life just fall on our laps and that things magically work. Everything just works in place, everything is hunky-dory in Singapore. That will be the big assumption, and I think we have to continually question that, not assume that we can simply cruise along just with the status quo. So, always looking at each and every issue, feedback that we receive, but also looking at policies and asking ourselves, can we do better? Is there a better way of doing things? It's not so much to change for the sake of change alone, but to always have the perspective that some things can be improved. Yes, there may be trade-offs, but perhaps circumstances have changed, perhaps our conditions are different, perhaps Singaporeans' appreciation of the trade-offs are different today, and perhaps there are new technologies, new solutions. So in each of these areas, across all our policies, always looking to do better for Singapore and Singaporeans.